Hey guys, this is Spoonie, and it is with a heavy heart that I tell you that this is the last episode of the DC Deluge series. Now, don't hold back the tears, they'll only add to the deluge. I want to make some changes to this channel in regards of format and presentation, and I will be getting into that after the books. So, let's look at book. Okay, so I started the last video off by reading Green Lantern New 52 Volumes 1 and 2. And in this one, I'm going to be doing New 52 Green Lantern Volume 3, The End. This is the end of the Jeff Johns run. First of all, the book says it collects issues 13 through 20. It does, but it also has the number 0 issue. Now, the end has a couple meanings with this book. It's obviously the end of whatever storyline was going on, but more significantly, it marks the end of Jeff Johns' run on this character. Now, this trade alone was just a crazy read. Having read the first two and now this one, I would say the New 52 Green Lantern really is kind of Sinestro's book, which I loved. Hal was great in this book, but it was really cool to see the new Green Lantern, Simon Baz. Johns was able to flesh him out enough that he was actually a really interesting character, and you felt like you knew a little bit about him just within the couple issues he was introduced. So this is definitely kind of spoilery, but one of the things I loved about this was the fact that it seems like the whole Third Army storyline was just kind of a nothing burger. It was actually leading into a bigger story involving the First Lantern. Basically, the First Lantern is the source of the emotional spectrum that powers each individual core. It was just a really awesome story, and I love the conclusion because everybody gets their happy ending. Now, trying to see it from the perspective of somebody who maybe this is the third volume of Green Lantern they've read, maybe they only started with New 52. I can see that this might be a little confusing or overwhelming because there are a lot of concepts going on that you really would have benefited from if you had read a lot of pretty much most of the Green Lantern stuff since 2005. That said, Jeff Johns is an amazing writer, and he is able to make you care about these characters even if you're jumping in on them in the middle of a storyline for the very first time. I very highly recommend this book. In the last episode, I covered Justice League Rebirth Volume 1, and now I'm going to cover Volume 2, Outbreak. This one collects Justice League issues 6 through 11. Now, I actually like what Brian Hitch has done with this series. This trade actually has two different storylines in it. The first one is something involving fear. So everybody's fear is exploited. It's a great way to sort of get into the minds of the characters and sort of learn what they're afraid of and why they have certain character traits. So the character development stuff is really the highlight. As far as an original story goes, there's nothing to see there. But the story does end with Green Lantern Jessica Cruz leaving the team because of her experience with her own fear. It's left her in doubt. But don't worry, she rejoins the team by the end of the next story. The second story is called Outbreak, and it deals with the Justice League system sort of malfunctioning, and they find out that they've been hacked. Now, the person that hacked them is some random nobody who helped install the Justice League computer systems or something. Anyways, he left his laptop around or something, and his teen Valeria Richards' daughter started to play around with it or something. Somehow she awoke the Amazo robot, and he started to tear it up because the younger brother got a hold of it, and he thought it was like a game or something. And anyways, the girl manages to shut it down, and everybody's like sorry and stuff like that. And then at the end, Batman says he's going to keep an eye on this girl because if she was able to do all that, they might need her for what's to come, which is again some vague threat that's going to occur in the future as he sort of set up in Volume 1. In the last video, I covered the rebirth books of Justice League, Volume 4 Endless, and Justice League of America, Volume 2, Curse of the King Butcher. Well, here I have Justice League Volume 7, Justice Lost. And as the cover kind of tells you, both teams are involved in this because this story is the conclusion of the both teams of the Rebirth era Justice League. Now it collects Justice League issues number 39 through 43. So I'm assuming Justice League of America ended just shortly before this. Now, this book is written by Christopher Priest, who did a great run on Black Panther for Marvel. If you've read that series and you liked it, you'll find that he has the same kind of political, diplomatic sort of bent to this storyline. Now, I guess there was a character called the Fan, and he was trying to make the Justice League better. Anyways, he literally shuts down the Justice League satellite to bring them down to Earth, literally and metaphorically. Anyways, the wreckage of the Justice League satellite crashes somewhere in Africa, and there is a territorial dispute over it. People want to loot it for its resources and stuff, and the Justice League are trying to keep them all at bay while they can get help for cleanup. And at the same time, they're trying to diffuse all these different political situations between warring groups. And there's a lot of discussion about whether they should do that, whether they should like take sides or something, if it's their place, or whether they should offer help and who do they offer help to. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in this book. It's just, this doesn't feel like an end of the series kind of storyline. I would say if you can find this book, especially at the dollar store, grab it. Christopher Priest is a solid writer, and his stuff is usually pretty good. This is DC Rebirth Batman Volume 1, I Am Gotham. This is the first volume by Tom King, and is actually the first thing by Tom King that I've read. Before I begin, it collects Batman Rebirth number 1 and Batman issues 1 through 6. Okay, so I liked this story a lot. I like Duke Thomas. I know that that's kind of Scott Snyder's character, and I believe while this was going on, he was doing stuff with Duke over in his own series, or he was in All-Star Batman, and that spun off into The Signal. Anyways, it's cool to see somebody new join the family, but I want to focus on some of the things that I don't really like about Tom King's writing. To me, his writing is very reminiscent of Brian Michael Bendis, and that's both a good and a bad thing. I think it's a great thing because you can tell he's got some great ideas. He's got some sort of long scope for the storylines and the characters and what's happening. But at the same time, that means the writing is very decompressed, and it felt like this storyline took a few issues longer than it potentially needed to, but it ends up in a pretty cool place. And like I said, I can feel like I can see the seeds of future storylines kind of growing here. I haven't read any of Tom King's Batman stuff, so if this is the start, I would say it's off to a pretty good start. Not as strong as the New 52 start with Scott Snyder, but I know this run lasted like 130 something issues, so it had to have been good. Up next is the Rebirth era Batman Detective Comics Volume 6, Fall of the Batman. This volume collects issues number 969 through 974 and the annual number 1 from whatever year that was. Now, I chose not to read this one, and I'll tell you why. I've picked up in the past volumes 3, 4, 5, and 7. 7 is the final one. So now with number 6, all I need is volume 1 and 2, and I'll have the complete Rebirth run of Detective Comics, and that's probably when I will read them. This is Green Arrow, the New 52 era. This is volume 6, Broken. This volume collects Green Arrow issues 32 through 34, Green Arrow Futures End Special number 1, and the Green Arrow origin story from Secret Origins number 4. Now, much like with the Detective Comics, I chose not to read this one specifically because this is the final volume in the Jeff Lemire run. So I would be kind of lost in terms of not knowing all the details that he had set up in the previous volume or two that he had worked on. I do have the 3 volumes that follow this that are still part of the New 52, and the first 2 volumes of the Rebirth Green Arrow. I think it involves Red Arrow, who's like his sister or something. And I know that kind of gets set up by Jeff Lemire earlier on, so I'm going to wait till I at least get the earlier parts of his run before I read this. I do have Volume 1 of the New 52 Green Arrow, and it's trash. So I'm guessing the Jeff Lemire run is when it started to get good again. The next one is from what I assume to be a post-Rebirth volume of The Flash. This is Volume 10, Force Quest, and it collects issues of The Flash number 58 through 63. Now, I'm kind of two minds about this particular story. I thought the writing was really good. The writer, Joshua Williamson, he seemed to have a good grasp of Barry. I liked where the story was kind of going, some interesting developments in some regards. But the stuff I did not like is what dominates this story, and that is this whole Force Quest. See, at some point, if you know The Flash, since Mark Waid introduced the Speed Force, you probably know about The Flash, and he's able to tap into this sort of energy that allows him to, do his super speed stuff. Well, apparently there are 3 other forces as well. There is the Still Force, which represents entropy. There is the Sage Force, which is some kind of wisdom. And then there is the Strength Force, which is self-explanatory. Now, apparently the Flash had fought in some of his traditional rogues that had tapped into this, like the Strength Force. So I guess he's going around the world trying to figure stuff out. And spoiler, so I guess this whole time he thought the forces were supposed to help each other or something like that. But the secret history of the Speed Force is that these 4 forces are in constant conflict with each other for kind of control of the universe. I don't know, some kind of big end level type stuff. In the last video, I covered New 52 Batgirl Volume 4, Wanted. Well, this is Volume 5, Deadline. Now, this is actually the last arc of Gail Simone's run on New 52 Batgirl. It collects issues of Batgirl number 27 through 34, the Batgirl Annual number 2, and the Batgirl Futures End Special number 1. Now, first of all, I'm going to say that this series, just based off of reading Volume 4 and this now Volume 5, is a pretty good series that had the unfortunate connection to the Batman family, which meant that there are so many tie-ins over this and the last trade. They do a tie-in to Zero Year, which was a cool story. They do a tie-in to Gothtopia, which I think it was in the Detective Comics New 52. I haven't read it, but I've read the tie-in issues, and it's dumb. And then you've got the whole Futures End thing. Now, I will sort of jump ahead and say the Futures End thing is actually pretty cool. I don't want to give too much away. It's kind of Batgirl's quest to be better than Bane. Anyways, the main story is obviously finishing up plot lines from Gail Simone's last 2 years on the title. Like I said, I haven't read most of that, but just what I've read was good. Now, I was a big fan of Gail Simone on the Birds of Prey series that ran during the pre-Flashpoint years. She had a great balance of teamwork and humor and action, and that kind of comes through in this, especially when they finally introduce the Huntress to the DC New 52 Earth 1. So she meets Batgirl and Black Canary, and we start to see that old birds of prey dynamic, even though this is their first time they're meeting. She quickly falls into a pattern with them. There's some interesting little one-off stories here. There's like an issue or two where she fights, as far as I know, his new character called Silver. He's supposedly a delusional guy that sees everybody as monsters, but apparently one of the people he was hunting was actually a vampire, so he's not super crazy. And another storyline featured Batgirl going up against a villain called Ragdoll. Now, Ragdoll was somebody that Gail Simone worked with and developed a lot in the Secret Six books that she was writing, again, pre-Flashpoint. So, despite all the distractions with all the unnecessary tie ins and whatnot, I think that this volume was actually a pretty enjoyable read. Here I've got Teen Titans Volume 1 Full Throttle. Now, it actually collects the Teen Titans Special number 1 and Teen Titans number 20 through 24. So I'm guessing this is just Volume 1 of A New Direction. I have no idea when this is set, sometime after Rebirth, obviously, but I don't know how far. Anyways, the hook here is Damian Wayne Robin wants to start a new version of a team of younger heroes to do what the Justice League cannot. Because he thinks that the world is getting more violent and that you can't just lock everybody away. So the special kind of shows how the sort of founding members of this new team, which are Robin, Wallace West, the Kid Flash, and Red Arrow, who was Green Arrow's sister and Shadow's daughter. So she and Robin have the connection of both having assassins for mothers. Anyways, the number 1 special it's kind of like split between the 3 characters. They each get their own section, and it really does a good job of showing why they are sort of embracing this new attitude that Damian has, which is more about like shoot first, ask questions later kind of a thing. Now, the problem with this concept, though, is they don't really deliver on it. You figure with Red Arrow and with Robin and somehow Lobo has a daughter named Crush, and she's on the team for some reason. I guess because they need a powerhouse. As far as I know, they created her specifically for this series. But yeah, the whole thing is they're not afraid to shed some blood to get things done. Now, they don't actually do this. They end up kind of operating very much like every other version of the Teen Titans, where it's like, oh no, there are soldiers, forget them, we need to go after the main guy. And oh, we can't kill him because we need him for information. Now, the one thing I will say is actually a little bit different, and I think is this sort of cool ongoing story hook, is that Robin's not telling the rest of the team what's happening after they take these guys down. What he's actually got is he's got some like abandoned Wayne Properties warehouse, and he's literally keeping all the guys they've captured like chained to the floors and hung from the ceilings. And he just comes in there every time he needs information from one of them. So that's a little different. That's a little darker than we've kind of seen from a Teen Titans book. And I like the sort of the other new characters they have here. There's Jin, who's some 4,000-year-old teenage genie. There's some interesting stuff going on with her powers. I feel like she's very much kind of a stand-in for Raven, but so far she's an intriguing character. And then you've also got, who I assume to be a new character, Roundhouse, the big blue fat Asian guy. He's kind of like a sort of a fanboy, a superhero fanboy, so it's kind of like, I guess, the audience's way to sort of understand what's going on. And he does have a definite Gold Balls feel, if you've ever read the Bendis Uncanny X-Men run. And I know Hickman has been using Gold Balls with all that horrible resurrection stuff. Anyways, it's a interesting lineup for the team. The writing is pretty good, and it seems like there are enough sort of interesting hooks that this isn't just another forgettable volume of the Teen Titans. And the final book of this video is DC meets Hanna-Barbera. Now, for the most part, these don't exactly conflict with continuity, so I'm choosing to believe that these are all real stories. So the first story you've got is Booster Gold and the Flintstones. He's doing some time travel thing, and he ends up going back in time to the prehistoric era, and it definitely feels like just kind of a wacky Booster Gold issue, but the Flintstone involvement is very minimal. Now, the backup story in that issue is about the Jetsons, and it's actually a really nice story, kind of about the origin of Rosie. I don't want to give it away. It's only like 6 pages or something, but it was a really nice story. The next issue is Green Lantern meets Space Ghost. Now, again, I'm choosing to believe that this is in continuity, that this is just some unexplored sector of space. So, anyways, Green Lantern meets Space Ghost. They're both kind of some kind of space cop, space protector. They end up on a planet that doesn't believe there's life in the galaxy beyond their own planet. And the two of them kind of work together to sort of fight off the army, and they help the world establish that there is a larger galaxy, and it's up to them to choose whether they want to explore it or not. The backup story in that one is written and drawn by Howard Chaykin, and this is actually an entertaining little read. It's kind of a story about comedians and joke telling. I don't really want to give away too much. Again, this backup was probably better than the main story for this issue. The next issue was the Adam Strange meets Johnny Quest crossover. It was called Future Quest. Now, this was actually a good story, but kind of like the other ones, it didn't really feel so much like a collaboration. It is kind of centered around Adam Strange and his encounter with the Quest team. But honestly, you could have put in any kind of generic spaceman. This really is more of a Johnny Quest story, and as a result, Adam Strange is just kind of a bit player. It did have some strong Johnny Quest vibes, though, and I love the original version of the show, so I actually enjoyed this part. The backup in that issue is with Batman encountering Top Cat. Now, he originally thinks that Top Cat is part of Catwoman's gang, who's trying to distract him, but then Top Cat goes into a sob story about how he actually came from a different planet that was full of anthropomorphic cats, and that now he's somehow stuck on this world. He's convincing enough that Batman leaves. We see then that Catwoman has been lurking in the shadows, and that he actually has been working for her the whole time. And the final issue in this volume is the Suicide Squad meets Banana Splits. Now, this team up actually worked. If you're going for the kind of goofy movie version of the Suicide Squad, which they kind of are here, this is such a ridiculous concept that it just works. So basically, what happens is the squad gets captured on some mission. The Banana Splits were recently arrested because they look like freaky mutants, and Amanda Waller immediately conscripts them to go rescue the Suicide Squad. It's just a really goofy story that somehow works. With the books out of the way, I can tell you guys about this series and where it's going to go from here. Mainly the reason I want to stop doing DC Deluge videos is because I'm tired of thinking of like water puns and stuff. I do love showing off the hauls I have, but I'm thinking I need to change up the format a little bit. I can show off like all the books I've got, and then I'm thinking I can just do a video for each one or videos for whichever ones people ask. Um, for me to do a big video like this really takes a lot of time for me because sometimes like I'll read one of the books and I'll just get so tired that I need to nap. So if I'm lucky, I can get to like a book a day, a book every 2 days. Um, so it'll be a lot easier for me to do like a video for each book. It's more consistent releases. You guys will get stuff faster. So let me know if that's something that sounds good. I mean, if you want, I can continue to do these larger videos. I'll probably do larger videos like this when it comes to, like, say, entire series. As I mentioned, I'm 2 volumes short of having the entire DC Rebirth Detective Comics run, so if and when I track those down, I can definitely do a review. I can do a big one with each volume, or I can just do one for each volume. So really, it would be nice if you guys kind of let me know which sort of format you guys would prefer. And, I want to try to deliver on stuff that you guys want to see, but also that I like to make. So if you made it to the end of this, thank you very much. I know it was a very long video. I feel like I've got a lot of cool stuff that I want to show off and share with you guys, so I really hope that you'll come back and join me for future videos. Thank you for watching. Bye.